Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to my channel. Today's Chiwako, your marriage and relationship coach, and I am on a mission to radically transform millions of marriages, helping them to rebuild trust, restore intimacy, and create the marriage of their dreams, even after an affair. Now, in this video, I wanted to just get a little bit vulnerable with you. And you know what? It's important for me to do this video because I think that it can be easy to look at somebody's journey and start it from a certain point, from their winning point. So yes, we are winning in marriage. Myself and Mr. Chiwako, we have a marriage that we both describe as our blessing, right? It's our greatest blessing. We're very happy. We love spending time together. We love this journey of life that we're on together. We're absolutely best friends. But it wasn't always that way. It really wasn't. In fact, it was far from it. Far from it. I used to describe my marriage as my personal hell, and I meant it. Now, this has come up really because as I'm working with couples and individuals around the world, I'm finding that actually how they're showing up in their relationship has a lot to do with their pre-marriage story, that the things that happened to them, some landmark events, small or big experiences, have now come to inform how they behave, how they react or respond and operate in their marriage, and therefore create a certain marital experience, right? And that obviously got me thinking about my own marriage story. And really for me, it started at the age of 7, 8, where I was being repeatedly sexually abused by my uncle. And that went ahead and caused me to have a really unhealthy relationship with sex and an unhealthy understanding of sex. And so I spent my teenage years in a confused state of promiscuity and toxic relationships. I mean, I still did what I needed to do. I finished high school, I went to college, and I eventually went to university. But everything I'd been through in the toxic relationships, even I was recognizing was having impact on me. In fact, the one of the last relationships that I had was also abusive, right? And so I decided to take some time out and do some form of healing. I guess I just wanted to go and find myself. And so I went and did something that I always advise young people to do. And I went and did Camp America. I went to New York by myself, and I went to a camp that was really working with people with all forms of disabilities. And I stayed out there for 3 months, and it really helped me to discover who I was, right? I really found, especially being around all these people with all these disabilities, but had so much to them and gave me so much, I realized that I wasn't this useless, filthy, unworthy thing, but actually there was a light that shone within me, and I really wanted to know that person more. So that was like the beginning of my awareness of how things that had happened to me in the past had impacted me. But as I came back from the States, literally within days of being back in the UK, I met Mr. Chiwako, and we fell in love. Like, we were inseparable almost instantly. From there, we got into a more serious relationship, and then we got married. But you know what? It was really in marriage that the negative impact of everything I'd been through really showed up. You know what they say, marriage is like a mirror. Marriage is going to really show you who you are, right? All your flaws. And so that's exactly what happened. And listen, guys, I found that I was extremely angry. Like, I had this real anger. This fair skin that you're looking at would turn bright red with anger at the smallest things. Sometimes I was hyper defensive. Like, I actually remember that I had the mindset, like I entered into the marriage with the mindset of, no one's messing with me. Like, you're not going to take the mick out of me, and I'm gonna get you before you get me. It was this real, I don't even know whether to call it defensive or an attack. It was a mixture of the two of them. I was verbally abusive when I got angry, or if I was defensive, I would use my mouth terribly because I was trying to cut him down. I was emotionally unstable. Like, I was an emotional roller coaster. You never quite knew what you were going to get from me, and highly emotionally immature, really sensitive. In fact, I'll pop a link here to the video that I did, giving you 8 signs to know whether you're emotionally immature. And that list was basically based on who I was. Like, it was, when I really think back, I was just a mess. But even in the midst of that, at some point, I did recognize that something was wrong here. Why am I showing up this way? Because the more that I was showing up with all that anger and defensiveness and emotional immaturity, verbal abuse, and all these things, I was creating the marital experience that I had, which was like my personal hell, and I didn't like it. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, Mr. C had his own premarital stories, his own PMS that he was bringing into the marriage. So between the two of us, we were just creating chaos, right? But you've got to take ownership for your own stuff. And I recognized reaching a point where, especially after the affair happened and we decided that we were going to make it work, we both knew that things had to be different. And I really did recognize that I had to do some work within me. Right? And I wanted to be a better version of myself, the version of myself that I knew, right? That wasn't informed or dictated to by the lessons I'd learned from the horrible things that had happened to me in my past. And we're always learning lessons from everything that happens. It's just that sometimes we pick out the lessons that are not going to do us any good. They're negative lessons. And when I really sat back and tried to figure out why I was showing up in my marriage the way that I did, I recognized that it was because of my PMS, my premarital story. And so I had to go back, and it wasn't easy. It meant that I had to open doors in my mind that I'd held shut for a long time, almost just to protect myself, right? I had to face these things. I had to sort of draw the correlation, not in a way to blame my past, but to recognize where these things were coming from. Because whilst I was in my marriage, I was just blaming my marriage, or I was blaming Mr. Chiwako. And you know what? It's not the marriage. And it wasn't Mr. Chiwako, it was me. And so going back, unearthing all those things was difficult. I had to face them, I had to forgive them, and I had to look for the good in them. See, now that was the part that was really difficult, because for so long, all I'd done was pulled out the negative, and I had allowed those negative to build up negative emotions, responses, and behaviors, protective mechanisms within me. And actually looking for the good meant that I could change some of those mindsets and core beliefs that I held around me not being worthy of being loved, around me being filthy, around men only wanting to use me. I could change and challenge them and start to look for the positive lessons from those experiences, such as how resilient I am, the wisdom that I now have because of those experiences, that I'm worthy of great love, and so much more positive lessons that I pulled out of that time in my life. And then once I'd done that, I could make a decision to not allow my past to dictate who I am today and the marriage that I'm creating. I was able to then say, okay, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What kind of marriage do I want to have? And go ahead and choose the behaviors or the parts of me that is going to allow me to create that marital experience for myself. Now, let me tell you, if I'd have stayed in that position of just blaming the marriage and just saying, you know what, there's something wrong with this marriage, or blaming Mr. Chiwaka, I would never have done that self-reflective work. It's never the marriage itself. The marriage is nothing. It's identityless. The marriage only becomes what you create it to be based on how you show up, what you pour into it, your habits, your behaviors, right? Your choices. And all of those will most of the times be dictated to by what's happened before your marriage, in your pre-marriage story, right? And so it's so important for you to look back, not to look back as a crutch or as an excuse, but to deal with it, reason with it, pull out the good, forgive it, forgive yourself and anybody else that was involved, and go ahead and be the person that you were created to be. So I would encourage you to do that. Go and have a look at your PMS. And if you want help with that, or help with radically transforming your marriage, hit the link in the description, book your free 30-minute breakthrough call. Let's talk about your situation and how we can absolutely turn it around. Absolutely, that is available to you. And also, if you've got any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. It's Daisy Chuako, your marriage and relationship coach, and I'll see you in the next video.